All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining. So this session is recorded and we will provide the recording and the PDUs after the session as well. Good old Laura Hill does a phenomenal job with that. Laura's our VP of marketing and probably has communicated with you folks before. Really appreciate your interest in this topic. It's a topic near and dear to my heart. I did my first, real face-to-face presentation for work probably back in 1996. In the last 2 years alone, I've done about 200 presentations. Yes, 200 presentations. It's kind of crazy. To just about 8 to 10,000 people. It's hard to keep track of the numbers. I tried to do my best, but in that range. So I've been really trying to hone these skills up and be able to present for you folks in this type of session some of the things I learned, the do's and don'ts, what to watch out for. One of the first things I talk about sometimes, that's when I'm doing a physical presentation, if you're doing anything weird, like for instance, I wear these are wristbands. The wristbands help me with vertigo. So if you're going to do a presentation that's important and you only have a short period of time, if you're wearing anything weird, different, or strange, you should mention that so it doesn't draw people's attention away from you. Like someone might be thinking, what is he wearing on his wrist? Is it weird? Some of you might have been thinking about that or wondering what it was, and that kind of blocks the opportunity for you to kind of listen more to what I'm going to be talking about. So in short presentations, when you don't have much time, really want to be focused on making sure people, if there's any abnormality, you're talking about that abnormality, bringing it out so it doesn't become something that gets in the way of the learning process. So number two is I love communication. So if you have a question, comment, thought, if you have a book to share, if you have a piece of reference material, if you have a story you want to share, go right ahead and chat it in, type it away, type it in, let people see it. You can pull the chat down as well from these sessions so you can get some information. Yes, most people would rather die than publicly speak. That's absolutely correct. So that's part of the challenge here is that in this type of setting, especially when you're face to face, it produces a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of physical manifestations of that negative self-talk, and people don't quite understand, how to handle that, not get control of it, but to manage it. Yeah. So how do you sell yourself in interviews? I talk in front of people just fine. I don't know why it's so specific because again, Christina, there's a thing there tied to you want to succeed. You want these people to like you. So there's more at stake. You're more nervous associated with it. And it's tough to be able to talk about yourself as well. We can follow it up with some additional questions that we could dig into that for too. But the first thing is that I'd like to show this slide to really get you a sense that most people fear it in some way. And I still get nervous before any presentation. It's important to me. I want to create value. You're concerned, are you going to do a good job? Is there going to be any technical issues? Are you prepared? Those are the type of things that are going on inside your head. And so if you care, you will be nervous. That's a good sign. It's a matter of how do you control that anxiety, understand that anxiety, and in some cases work to support yourself so that the anxiety isn't so strong. And that's what we want to do. Part of what we want to do is, really get that anxiety into control. So the agenda, we're going to talk about the agenda. I'm talking pretty fast today, so I'll probably slow down just a tad. But that is a technique for keeping you engaged, is the speed of my voice, since I don't have face-to-face with you. So first off, we're going to talk about executive presence. Most of the folks on this call, if not all of you, are professionals. You're working in complex and complicated environments, most likely in large organizations, or you're going to be working in complex and complicated environments, and you're going to have to influence. So a critical power skill in the process of influencing to move things forward is your executive presence. How are you seen by others? And how do you communicate the messages you want to communicate? Remember that the greatest idea in the world, if it's not communicated properly, is useless. So as you are influencing, you have to work on ways to communicate the information you have properly and to have that presence to garner the respect that people will actually listen. So we're going to talk about that concept of executive presence. We'll talk about some tools. So we'll talk about virtual tools. We're in a virtual session right now. We'll talk about physical tools. There isn't so much physical tools, but we'll talk about those. And remember, not remember, but we'll be covering both sides. We're covering the virtual side and we're covering the physical side. We'll talk about things you have to consider, planning before you prepare. Yes, you have to plan before you prepare. Your preparation, some tips, tricks, and tips, skills, tips, tricks, all that good stuff for presenting itself. What do you do with your hands? What do you do with your eyes? The delivery, dealing with problems during delivery. We'll have some fun with impromptu speaking and a little bit on storytelling, but nowhere near enough that you're going to have any real strength in that area. I just want to fire you up a bit to go out there and start looking at ways to build your storytelling skills. That's important because we all learn best in stories. Yeah, Aaron, we'll talk about your hands. Yeah, it's kind of creepy, isn't it? You got these appendages and they're floating around in air somewhere, and what am I supposed to do with them? You know, and if you think about them too much, that's part of the problem. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about your hands. I got a whole slide on that. So, how will you benefit from elevating your brand with executive presence? Think about it. What does this do for you to have a presence that will enable you to drive forth your ideas and thoughts? This is so true. Yeah, there's people that still throw up, athletes that still throw up before they go out into the football field. Yes, so part of having a strong executive presence is influence, is that ability to influence, to drive things forward. What else? Maybe that's the number one answer. Yep. So you want to, your strength, especially in complex projects. Most of you work as project managers, business analysts, testers, IT management. You want to see yourself as a thought leader in a specific area. Confidence is so important. People, yes. Change management, Christina, that's so important because to help people change, there has to be a level of confidence, going back to what Robert talked about. They have to be confident in you. So there's so many elements of it. I mean, really what it boils down to is your ability to influence and work with a large scope of people and to be able to move forward and get things done. Most of you folks work, again, in the SDLC, the software development lifecycle environments. So you're driving change on a consistent basis. So being able to have this executive presence will help you influence at all levels. The art of persuasion. I love it. Love it. Right. It is an art, not just a science. Here's the other thing about executive presence is you understand how to talk to people at the point of who they are. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, not a little bit, but some, and the fact that you've got to be able to understand your audience and then adjust how you communicate based on that audience. And the scenario presentations are a lot about, it's not about you, it's about them. And getting away from that, it's all about me. But great, and that executive presence ties to so many things. Your hair, what you wear, how you move, how you present yourself, but we're really going to focus in on a couple of key elements. So, okay, you're in college again. There's some of you who are still in college because you're getting a second or third degree. Imagine you get ready to meet a new professor. What internal questions might you ask yourself about that? Well, think about it. Professor, there's going to be somebody that's going to be teaching you. Someone that's going to be presenting information to you that you're supposed to learn from. The first thing I think about is respect. I want to be able to respect this person. I love the educational background. Love it. How well do they know the material? Did they write a book? Absolutely. Yes, Christina, you can do this presentation. Christina, I love it. Absolutely. So you're thinking through, and what you're really thinking about is the first thing that's going to be going to your mind is credentials, right? Their educational background, what they've learned, where they've been to, what they've done. They have any real world experience. I love that aspect of it. So you're going to go out to LinkedIn, right? You might read their bio. Then you might check them out, and him or her, they might check her, him, them, there, out. And you gotta see a way of their position, who they are. Yes, currency and relevance of thoughts, right? So that you get that, Shelley, actually, and you'll get some of that in their LinkedIn page or their bio on the college or university website. Or you may get some anecdotal information from somebody who's taken a class from them. All right, so we know we have this one level of credibility. Your resume is this way, right? And now we go back to the other part of that. Resume is the interview, right? So this is just one part of building credibility. At some point, you're gonna have to walk up in front of people or person. How do things change? And this goes back to Christina, what you talked about. They're late. I was gonna come in here with a t-shirt that said Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or some crazy thing like that. I was gonna come in with my messed up hair. I was gonna have some fun. But then Pamela had to go to Florida. I have all 5 dogs running around like maniacs, and so I had to quickly run to the office. I'm not doing the presentation with the 5 craziest creatures on the face of the earth. So poor virtual setup. What happens, Sophie, when that poor virtual setup happens? What do you start thinking about? They couldn't give good answers to your questions. They're using a lot of filler words. And the reason I'm starting here, not just at the techniques, is I want to reinforce how you think, because everybody's thinking that way. They are. They're thinking about this. When you do this, they're thinking about you this way. Here is the problem. All right, a little bit of scientific data. This is a slide from my friend Tommy Ray. You know, we have we have 3 presenters talking about a business idea. We have 24 angel investors evaluating on both presentational skills. They're watching the presenter, they're listening to the presenter, and then of course the business plan, the financial documentation. You lose confidence in them. That's right, Juliet. You base your opinion and get sidetracked and you lose that information. Then run the shorter this process, the shorter time you have it, people, the worse that is. He once dropped the class because the professor said, like, I love that. So here's these angel investors. This is money. This is cash money, right? They're going to give these people cash money. What they look for. Vast majority, 80% evaluated just on the presentational skills. More so than the business plan, the details in the business plan. I don't know how many times I've seen this in corporate America. For sometimes good and sometimes bad, right? So your idea, even if it's not quite put together, can be driven forward with strong presentation skills. And here's a skinny. I know that sounds manipulative, and part of this is manipulative, excuse me. And part of this is frustrating because what happens to people who put all the data together, even though it's a better idea? That's what I call reality. We have to understand that the idea is only part. If you know anything about communication, we know that 60% of communication is body language, 30% of the communication is the tone of your voice, and only 10% of communication is the actual words you say. Oh, it was a joke. I wish you did that. That would make me laugh. I love that. So your speaker credibility is not static. You have initial credibility. And then you have derived credibility. So this is partly your reputation. Reputation based on multiple times that you've presented or having contact with people. And ultimately you bring to the table your total credibility. This is your background, what you've learned, the knowledge you bring to the table, plus how you presented that information in multiple areas. So what you really want to think about for yourself right now is what did you think? How would you rate yourself on a scale from, like, as it relates to your terminal credibility? Are you increasing that credibility or are you decreasing that credibility based on the stuff you're doing? Your evidence unpresented, your clear what you presented, your clear organization, the connection with the topic, your inspiration, your ability to fire people up a little bit. Anyways, that's what you want to be thinking about with this. So the first thing we're going to do is we talk about tools. Virtual tools. I could spend forever on this slide. I'll probably spend, 3 to 4 minutes. First off, microphone. By far the worst thing you can do is have a poor or weak microphone. Because most of my interaction is going to be with the tone of my voice in a virtual environment. I could do this presentation with my video off, and I feel pretty good that I get the same level of engagement. Because I have only so much of my body to move around here. So my body language isn't my primary tool. Microphone. If you use a laptop, that microphone, that laptop, el stinkos, whether somebody told you or not. And I don't represent, any of these microphone manufacturers at all. I represent your brand, and your brand was weakened with a poor microphone. That's number one. Christina, you're so good. I love it. Yes, it was. That was with DALL-E/ChatGPT-4. I was waiting to see who would say it. Excellent job. So, number two, lighting. Lighting, especially if you're in a bedroom. A lot of us have to use a bedroom as a office, and the lighting can be horrible. What you want is you want lighting coming to your face. Well, I have two things hit me in the face right now. I have a little lampy here that's for something, kind of mood lighting, helps me with my mood. And then of course I got a ring light over here, and you might be able to see some of the adjustments in the color of my face with my ring light as I move it around to 3 different settings. So light coming into your face. Yeah, the glasses thing is a problematic, Sophie, and there really is it's a challenge. So what I try to do, I do sometimes wear my glasses lower. I sometimes get a little bit further away if I can, but it's really that's a tough thing to work through. Sometimes you get your anti-glare glasses. You can look at that as well. But yeah, it's a great point, but it's better than having a dark face. Not only a dark face, but just being covered in a veil of, it just makes you look like you're not prepared. From there, your background. Yeah, you just have to watch out for your background, because guess what? People are judging you for your background. It just is what it is. They're going to look at certain things. You can see this on news reporters when they're doing virtual sessions. They have their books set up a certain way. They're presenting their brand out to the world. So your background, third. What background are you working in? Working within, because you're going to be judged based on backgrounds. You can see very nuanced, very simple changes. Like someone moved from one location to the other, and everybody's, oh, where are you calling me from? Virtual backgrounds are great. It can be very positive. You do have to have the right processor. You have to watch out for some pixelation. And we got to watch out for the visible hand coming in if somebody's delivering you a sandwich. One of the funniest stories I heard in a virtual presentation where somebody got delivered a sandwich while they're presenting, and there's a virtual sandwich come alive. So if you put a plant behind you, you're actually viewed as smarter. Well, Christina, that thing on the plant is interesting, because I always tell people, if you can take care of a plant, you can run the company. Very similar. You got to water it, you got to feed it. Sometimes you have to put fertilizer on it. Sometimes you have to trim it down. So plants are great too. I mean, the key is it should be about you. Just know that people are looking at it. So microphone number 1, face lighting number 2. Number 3 is your background. From there, you can work it. I mean, the camera situation can be problematic, but most laptop cameras suffice. You just want to lift the camera up so it's not looking through your nose. But remember, you're going to be judged in that environment. The shorter the time frame, the more judgment occurs. Simple as that. More questions pop up. You don't want to make it so antiseptic that, then they're thinking you're calling you from some type of hospital. And you don't want to make it so crazy that they're being totally disrupted by that. And a lot of people go to virtual backgrounds, and virtual backgrounds are pretty cool, right? So there's a lot of cool things you can do with them, and sometimes they look really nice. The problem for me, though, is I just get uncomfortable, as you can see, with the pixelation that happens. We'll keep this virtual background on for a while, and as we keep going, yeah, enjoyment. I definitely don't want backgrounds of motion. Absolutely. All right. What about your physical tools? What about your physical tools? So first and foremost, have your slides everywhere. On your computer, on a jump drive, on 2 jump drives, sent to somebody beforehand. So if you're doing some type of, more major lunch and learn scenario, having multiple places where you have that presentation is so important. Because I watched and horror people who have lost their slides and then they can't present. So the other piece about physical is, can you do the presentation without slides? Now, virtual, it's hard because you have to be really good. You gotta have a good radio voice. You have to have good tone. You have to be able to change your inflections quite a bit. You have to use moments of silence and movement. But with physical, I mean, the slides shouldn't be as important because you get to so much more body language. So you should, on the physical side, be able to present your presentation without the slides. The slides are behind you. The slides are working and going forward. Cables, attachments, you never know what you're going to expect. I have a face for radio. Me too, as you can see. I love that. Here's a skin. You never know what projector you're going to get. I don't care. If you're an Apple person, bring your adapters. If you're a PC person, bring extra HDMI cables. Bring your power cord. Bring your laptop, no matter what. Even if they said they're going to provide a laptop, bring your laptop. If you're going into a meeting, you have your agenda, make sure you're connected with the technology. Just like we talked about somebody stumbling, fumbling, and mumbling to try to get the virtual thing going. It's just as bad as you're stumbling, fumbling, trying to get the technology going if you're doing the meeting, even if a small group meeting itself. And then your dress becomes a tool as well. And we'll talk about properly dressing for the environment that you're walking in. Bring your laptop charger, absolutely. Have to bring a charger. Test your connection to the network, absolutely. These are all good shares. You can't think that you're just going to walk in on the physical side. All right. Consider my first presentation story is horrible. I took a communication class at Maryland. I tried to memorize my presentation. I freaking stopped midstream. I just had to sit down. I couldn't handle it. My first job, I used to have to introduce classes for a training company. Oh man, I stumbled, fumbled. I was nervous. I was sweating all over the place. It was bad. And it generated a poor image of myself. And I knew that. I knew that I wasn't properly giving the right image and what the opportunity was. So for today, I know a lot about what makes me nervous. I know a lot about how I can control that nervousness, and I'm on top of that. And then also today, I make sure I put myself in situations where I know I can do it right. I know I can provide a high level of quality. I don't put myself out there that would cause somebody who's engaging with me to have a less than high quality experience. So you always be nervous. Nobody is born perfect. You develop a style, and the style comes through at practice. Number one is on the interview side. We talked about interviews. Smile. You engage with your smile. Be very relevant in the interview side. Be very, very relevant to the questions they're asking. Be careful going off tangent. Really, you don't necessarily have to sell yourself. You just have to be who you are. Relevant examples of where you produce value based on the right timing and the relevance of that information to what you're being asked. And then a great idea is nothing. This is it. It's nothing. Unless it's presented properly. All right, so you're going to prepare. The first thing you're going to prepare is that, as we talked about, first impression, that first 10 minutes, really it's the first 2 or 3 minutes. The first 2 or 3 minutes makes all the difference in the world. Now here's the skin. The longer you're with people, the less this becomes important. So if you're teaching a 2-day class offsite, you haven't met some of these people in a while. You haven't met some of these people. Well, if you stumble and fumble at the beginning, you have time to make it up. If you have a 1-hour presentation with sponsors and executives you've never met before, you don't have much time to screw up. I mean, actually, you have a lot of time to screw up. You don't have much time to fix your screw up. That's right. You can fix it long term. But the shorter, what happens, Antonio, is that even though you might be able to fix it at the end, a lot of them have already tuned you out. That's problematic. So when you're looking at things, you got to look at your audience. Who are you speaking to? You want to match their profile. You want to match their profile with regarding how you dress, what language you use, the mannerisms you use, the culture and the style of the organization you're speaking with. You want to do your best to match that up. Again, it's not about you. It's about them. So you're not going to go talk to a bunch of gym teachers in a suit. You're not going to talk to a bunch of bankers, in shorts. I mean, that's very apparent examples, but there's nuances to this. There's cultures within companies. Maybe your team wears suit jackets, but another team doesn't. And you put a suit jacket in, they're going to think, big office phony. And then you're going to have a tough time recuperating from that. So you are judged even before you open your mouth. So matching that profile is important. And we'll go back to that as well. Ah, that's very good. You're prepared. That's very good. Excellent. I like that, Christina. Good share. So on the prep side, know your topic. Not memorize your topic. Know your topic. And it should be somewhat instinctual, like we talked about with experience. It should be something that you've done before so that you can talk about things. You can provide relevant examples of when things occurred. Next thing is you must believe in your topic. Look at this from this presentation perspective. Authenticity is important. Am I just doing this to blow some smoke, or am I actually really enjoying it? Do I like interacting with you, or am I just doing it to check a box? We as human beings can really sense that. We have a good phony meter. So you have to work on it. You have to be able to show that authenticity. It's about you. Some of us, are going to have different styles of communication, different slides. Some people use images. I use a lot of text, as you can see. It's about your style. I don't talk to the slides. I just kind of ramble and try to keep it tied into the slides in front of me. But that authenticity is the icing on the cake. It's the real difference. And just like in those presentation skills, your authenticity can hide some holes in some of your thoughts and some of your things that are going on within the details of what you're working on. I say, and I always say, you should outline your talk. Even if you're doing a meeting, your agenda is your outline. So you should know your cadence, and you should know where your risk factors are for going over time. In any situation, a presentation is a story in a tuxedo. I know where that's going, Aaron. I know where that's going. Yes, indeed. It can be cool until you do something else. So you should have an outline. An outline should be telling a story. I mean, I'm not a big fan on this whole idea of presentation, and then you have your presenter notes on another screen. I think it ties more towards someone reading than really engaging. So that's one thing you want to be thinking about. But sometimes you need notes. So if you're going to do presentation mode, just keep the notes high level and talk through each one of your anchor words. You want to get in anchor words in a second. If you're going to work on 3x5 cards, I'd like to love all the conversation going on. This is fantastic. Yeah, I don't think the lecturer was wearing a swimsuit. That's going to provide a great, you're going to remember that as you did. Anyways, 3x5 cards, they can work. Just don't talk into the cards. Don't, you can use them as something you go back and forth with your eyes. And don't go back and forth too much or you look like a tennis match, right? And then the thing with any type of presentation, it's about practice, 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 practice. And you should realize that no one presentation is ever the same. Ever the same. You don't want it to be the same. Each presentation is a story in and of itself based on the audience members, based on their interest, based on some questions that the audience is asking. You might take me off into a ramble somewhere, depending on what you presented in your questions, which is valuable. That's what you want. We're continuing. So in your outlines, look for your anchor words. Words that are going to solicit your memory, not solicit your memory, but are going to ignite your memory so that you can go and start to speak. The least number of words to jog your memory. That's why a lot of people use the images, and that image jogs an emotional response, and then they want you to get the emotional response from the image, and then they start talking through that. I like the structure better. Because I think it keeps the audience on structure with some notes. It gets them grounded in some things. But I use my outlines as my anchor words. I'll use the headings of the titles of each slide as an anchor word. Ah, good point, Aaron. So think about your anchor words in your presentation. What's your ultimate thing that you're trying to come across with? And then how are you going to reinforce that with these anchor words that then you can expound on? That helps a lot. Then from there, language is so important. You're going to be judged on the words you say. So for number one, the newspaper is written in a like 6th to 7th grade language vocabulary. 6th to 7th grade vocabulary. There's a whole game out there called Business Word Bingo. I don't know if any of you played it before. What is that? Why is that game a game? Why is it fun? Maybe somebody's doing it to me right now, which would be fantastic. I just haven't used strategery yet. So hopefully someone's got a box using strategery. If you ever played Office Word Bingo, try it out. It's a lot of fun. The key is that we want to watch how we talk to people. So watch your acronyms. It's a turn off. International calls, watch your jargon, watch your cultural references. Now everybody knows the in things. And then your 4-syllable words, you really should control your 4-syllable words. On the company I ran, people used these two folks really badly and didn't really respect them. They were highly educated, but they would use some of the craziest words. I still remember when somebody used bifurcated. Now some of you think, oh, I know what that word is. I didn't know what it meant. You're trying to get a point across to me, or you're going to use a word. I'm going to say, what? And I stopped them. I was like, whoa, I ain't going any further because I didn't know what that word is. Yes, I've seen a bunch of cliches. So these three things, your language becomes important. You match your language to the audience. So part of your prep, selecting the right clothes. We talked about this. As you can see, I'm reinforcing some things. You know, how are you wearing a jacket? Are you not wearing a jacket? Women, are you wearing a suit? Are you going to wear a dress? Are you going to wear a skirt? Are you going to wear pants? You know, based on the environment. Wrinkles on clothes. Don't do it. You know, they're going to judge you a certain way. Hair not properly coiffed. They're going to judge you a certain way. It's certainly better to overdress than underdress, but then overdressing can get you in trouble. The shaving is important. You know, some people have a beard, that's great. Maybe you have some type of scruff that you manage, that's great as well. Some people can't shave because of other physical things associated with their face. But if you can, it's helpful. Clean cut, organized, structured. Cologne is important from a physical standpoint. And why? Because it's not expected. So they smell it, it's strong, they put an image in their head. The thing with women, the big thing is watch out for over makeup, over perfume. Perfume, again, is going to cause disruption associated with people as they're trying to listen to what you have to say. For men, your shoe and your belt, your shoes should match your belt no matter what, especially in executive sessions, brown belt, brown shoes, black belt, black shoes. People look at this. And if you're in a higher socioeconomic group, watch what your shoes look like. That's usually the last thing people judge. They judge your shoes to get a sense of, you know, how successful you've been. And then you go even deeper, people will judge your teeth. I don't know how you see, but all these people have some amazing white teeth. That is something that gets judged as well. Your cell phone, bye-bye. It doesn't exist. It does not, it's not in your pocket. When I'm alive, I stick it in my briefcase. I put my briefcase, you know, as far away as possible. I like pointers. I think pointers are good, you know, especially if you're trying to reinforce, but like if you're doing a virtual session and you like to reinforce some points, no pun intended, but that's what the pointer is good for. Reinforcing certain points. You don't want to use it the whole time. It becomes a cat chasing the light, you know, then people's heads are going to be all over the world. They're following the light now. But and be succinct about when you use it. But that cell phone thing is so important. It goes back to when you go to a store, you've been waiting in line for 4 or 5 minutes to cash out. and then the clerk answers the phone right in front of you and starts to talk. It's the same thing as when a cell phone is touched while you're having any type of group presentation. So who are you going to be? Are you going to be casual? Or are you going to be hardcore formal? You have to judge your environment. You want to have some fun with some people. You want to get right to the point with other people. You have to know this, and that starting point helps you out. And now I like to be maybe a little bit more formal at the beginning to show some credibility, and then ultimately loosen up over time. And that's truly an audience that's but even that, you get into trouble. Yeah, the slides and so forth will be shared. Also, Aaron, great stories. Thank you. So remember this. Where are you playing in this? And so I start usually a little bit more formal, then I move to a little bit more relaxed. A lot of times, if I thought I should be relaxed, I get in trouble because, I shouldn't have been. It looked like it was a relaxed group, but it wasn't. So I usually ebb towards formal, then go casual over the period of time. But each one of us is going to have a different style based on the audience itself. And remember, if you've been with a group for a while, say you have a project team, you've been meeting with that project team, you know darn well if you walk into that team too formal, they're going to think something's wrong. So the deeper the relationship, the more casual things should be, unless you have to deliver something very, very important. And that helps because then you can walk in more formal, more straightforward. You're going to make a definitive point. That's why people slow down when they present a lot of times. They're trying to make the point. So I didn't talk about this yet, but on the nerve side is a critical element. So what you do is, first off, you understand what happens to you when you get nervous. So some of us get massive headaches. Some of us get brain fog. Some of us have heart palpitations. Some of us have chest pains. Others of us have stomach, intestinal issues, including going to the bathroom. Number one and number two. Knowing that is important. So as I started seeing myself, I realized that, I get a little brain fog, like a lot of brain fog when I was really nervous, and have a lot of intestinal issues. So the first thing is I try to understand that brain fog is going to impact my ability to present the information. But on the bathroom side, I'll get to the 7, 4, 7, 8 in just a second. On the bathroom side, I made sure I knew where the bathroom was. I went to the bathroom beforehand, and then I went out. So I didn't hide from it. I didn't try to push it away. I actually understood it. And as the more I understood it, the better I could control it. Well, if you look at anything around anxiety, one of the issues of panic attacks and anxiety is a lack of oxygen. You start losing level of oxygen, you start panicking, and then that could draw up hyperventilation and mini panic attack. So what you want to do is you want to get in that air. So breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold for 7 seconds. Then breathe out for 8 seconds. So 4 seconds in. Hold for 7 seconds. 8 seconds out. Do this 10 times, do it 5 times. It'll slow your heart rate down. Once your heart rate gets slowed down, that will help with some of the brain fog. Your cortisol level will go down, your adrenaline level will go down, and that you'll feel more relaxed. Very, very good to do it right before you start talking. But remember that your issue with anxiety has a lot to deal with the breath, with lack of oxygen. Superman pose. James, I don't know where that's coming from, but if you need me to elaborate, let me know. It's pretty funny. So the last thing is controlling your anxiety is your negative self-talk. You got to know, you should know what you're saying to yourself. What are the negative things you're saying to yourself? How are you saying those things? Most cases, you're saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not well prepared, I don't know this topic well. They're going to make fun of me. I'm not going to get my point across. There's a lot of negative self-talk going on in there. On the interview side, we talked about the interview piece. You're really saying, I'm not good enough. I'm not prepared. They're not going to hire me. I'm not. All that negativity is driving into you, and it's going to start to come out as manifest itself physically with stress. And that stress, headaches, heart palpitations, stomach issues, racing heartbeat, the fog, the brain fog. Deep breaths. All right. Now the skills, your hands. Virtually, your hands can be important because you can use them as part of a body language situation. So you can make gestures, you can make points, you can point out certain things. You might even want to point to the screen and say, oh, that's that one point right there. So you can use your hands. Don't even think about them. The key is just to let them do their natural thing. The more you think about them, the weirder it's going to feel. So first off, they can be very distracting. They can make you feel awkward. Let them flow. Let them flow in how you normally present. Now, I wouldn't necessarily do the whole presentation with the hands behind your back. I wouldn't do the whole presentation with your arms folded. I wouldn't do the whole presentation with your hands in your pocket. It should be out of your pocket, to your side. If you can move, if you should get as natural as possible based on how you move your hands to talk. But certainly virtually, they help out a lot. But, physically, they can make big points as well. Eye contact. If anybody knows, that's Marty Feldman. Marty Feldman played Igor in Young Frankenstein. Great movie. Great movie. Gene Wilder. I think Gilda was in that too. Anyways, virtually eye contact is weird. Nobody looks in the camera on TV. That's called the fourth wall. Very seldom it doesn't happen. Very seldom it happens. Yes, Ferris Bueller did the fourth wall thing. But most people start to get very uncomfortable if you're staring at the camera for too long. Because that really isn't eye contact. It gets kind of creepy after a while. Really, what I try to do is I keep my eyes on the screen. I might look up and look at people as well. Go back, look at the screen, maybe look up at the camera for a bit. 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna be tilted to the right towards where I see people's pictures. You can't dart them around. Now, here's the thing. In the physical environment, you want to be able to move between people. You look in their eyes, you hold it for 2 seconds, you move. You look into somebody else's eyes, you hold it for 2 seconds, you move. You look into somebody else's eyes, you hold it 2 seconds, and you move. You look into somebody's eyes, hold it for a second. Try not to go back to the same people over and over and over again. Love the shares. Keep sharing. This is great. Don't hold it for any longer than 2 seconds or it gets really, really creepy. Number 2, in the physical side, don't get stuck on one person. That happens a lot too. You see one friendly face, and now you're just talking to that friendly face. And the bigger the group, you have to use your body and your eyes to look at both sides of the group. Too many times I've seen the lectern on the right-hand side, and that person just basically speaks to the right-hand side of the room. That's not what people want. Everybody else feels left out. Movements. Virtually, I do a little bit of movement. As you can see, I move back, I move forward. I try to make it somewhat of a conversation, like you're having a conversation with me. You might be engaging me similarly. I don't see the camera, but my hope is that's what you're doing. Like you're engaging. It depends. You come to these things for different reasons, for different purposes. On the physical side, movement's extremely important. Even if it's a small meeting, I suggest you stand up if you're the one in charge of driving the meeting forward. If you're presenting, you should stand up. It shows a level of intention, a level of detail, a level of understanding. And then, of course, respectfully sit down when somebody else is presenting. I like to, in physical, start in the middle. I like to then walk towards the left, start talking to the left side of the group, then get back to the middle, walk towards the right, talk to the right side of the group. Then I go to the middle and I go deep into the middle. I can't stand hybrid sessions because hybrid sessions put you in a box. Hybrid sessions are really, in my world, the worst of both worlds. You can't get all the movement, all the extracurricular movement and hand gestures and all that good connection stuff in the physical, and I can't respond to text. So try to stay away from your hybrids if at all possible. If you have to do them for work, you cater to the people on location. And then you answer questions virtually. Make sure you get people to offer you questions and you answer those questions. Movement's important. Don't want to just stand there, especially physically. You don't want to stand at the lectern if you can all help it. Even in a small meeting, you should move around a little bit as you're talking. So remember, 60% is movement, 30% is tone. The virtual, this is your tool. It's all about the tone and the speed. How fast you talk when you're really trying to dig into something, you're going to get as much information as you can and realize how important it is, to slowing it down. Look at from 0 to 5. You have that number 3 presentation voice. But then sometimes you want to slow down. And you really want to dig into that word monotone. Monotone. Kiss of death. Kiss of death. When you read script, you can become monotone. You're not an actor or a newscaster. They have to practice how to do that well. That's a worse scenario. So from my standpoint, questions, any presentation I'm going to do, I want questions throughout. And then I should have the skills to manage, when I attack that question or how I attack that question. And then, of course, questions afterwards. Because you want them as engaged as possible, man, right? I got those folks in there, their idea pops up and they want to share it. Share it. That's why virtual is better than physical. Virtual is better physical because you have an idea, you can share it. Boom. Look at Christina just shared it. Women can be considered less credible because voice tends to go up at the end of sentences. Great. Christina just added value to what I'm talking about that I couldn't add. That's why I love virtual so much more, because you got that instant of being able to share information. So, and then of course I want to answer questions after, and I try to stay to be the last person, especially if it's physical. I'm there to the bitter end. The bitter, bitter, bitter end. Thank you on that, Christina. So we talked about words a lot. Just realize your words tell who you are. I can play with some grammatical poorness because of my inspiration, my energy, my passion, but I can't get away with it too much or else I'll lose my credibility. Big words can be really cool, but then too much, you're going to lose your credibility. No problem. You'll get the recording. Thank you. Watch the fancy words. That affects your authenticity. You tell your audience, your presentation to your audience, Rob, by understanding your audience. So if I was doing this for salespeople, I'd have a lot different examples, a lot different tone than if I was doing this as I'm doing this now for project professionals. I would have a different slides and different ways I would talk if I was doing this for executives. Yeah, what you want is clearness, Christina. Clear and direct. I want clear and direct. I want to get the point across. I'm not about here trying to sell who I am with my big fancy words. I'm here to get to the other side. I'm here to present some ideas that hopefully you can be better at doing this. You'll find 1 or 2 tips or tricks that'll make you feel more confident. WW, I like that. Yeah, WWW. So posture, it's a sign of disrespect. It's a sign of lack of interest. I've seen presenters sit. I've seen the teacher sit the entire time they taught a class. It drives me absolutely crazy. It's something you have to watch out for, especially in meetings. So as you're doing your meetings, you got to watch your posture, watch your body language signals, because it could definitely turn people off. And then, of course, expressiveness. Not all of us are all, the charismatic P.T. Barnum type characters, but that smile, that genuine interest, the fun aspect of it. Well, that's contagious. That gets people involved. It can cover up a very lackluster amount of information. Inspirational speakers can overcome initial problems better. So if you had some major initial problems, you reference it, you hit it, and then you get as inspirational and fired up as possible. So you want to focus on your fluency. The message is right. You're saying it clearly. You're showing it with your body language, and you're working through the derailers. What do they hear? How do they see what they're hearing? How are they thinking? And what will they remember? Enthusiasm is contagious. That's really, if you come across with just that very statement, it's a very powerful win for me. So physical, be there early. If it's a conference presentation, be there an hour early. As people are walking into the room, greet them. Like if I'm even doing a meeting, and I'll greet people as they're walking into the room. That's what I try to do with regard to the startup of this session. Just trying to engage that you exist. Gauge that people are important. Well, and anything with NVIDIA is magic at this point. Thank you, Skip. So during delivery, start on time, end on time, which I'm working hard to make sure I do that for you guys. I didn't tell you folks, I didn't tell you how many slides, but I think it's like 31, 32 slides. I should have done that. Always thank people. Thanks for coming. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Whether it's a one-on-one meeting, hey, thanks for your time. Whether it's a meeting that you normally do, hey, folks, thanks for taking the time. Say thank you. Form of executive presence, not all about you. If you only do two things, you're engaging the audience with that inspiration and you're being authentic. At least they know who you are. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your participation. I really appreciate that. So, you're going to have to deal with rudeness. You're going to get too comfortable sometimes. How do you handle questions? How do you handle mistakes? Handling your emotions, conquering your fears. We talked about conquering your fears. Oxygen, number one. Controlling the self-talk, number two. And then knowing the outcomes of your anxiety with regard to how it affects you. You're going to have a headache, take your right headache medicine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Handling your emotions really becomes, it's not about you, it's about them. So if you start thinking it's about them, handling, and then Christina, I'm going to have time for questions, so we'll ask Rob to put that question back in. I don't remember it. Handling mistakes, you are honest. You made a mistake, and people can see it. You're honest about it. If you made a mistake and how people don't see it, then you don't need to bring it up. Getting too comfortable can be extremely dangerous. A bad word will come out of your mouth. Something you did not mean to say if you get too comfortable. That could put you in a nasty situation. You should always make fun of yourself and yourself alone with humor. There's no jokes unless you're teasing yourself. And then, rudeness, you point it out, you try to work with it, you ask them to stop, but that's a hard one. How can presenters effectively convey complex information concisely without sacrificing audience comprehension in today's fast-paced environment? Okay. Simplicity, relevance, and timing, Robert. Simplicity. Everybody can make things complex. A really smart person can take complex things and make them simple. So what I like to boil down complex things is it saving money? Is it making money? Is it keeping you out of jail? Then how are you going to save money? How are you going to make money? And how are you going to keep everybody out of jail? Relevance. You don't have to tell everybody how the sausage is made. Maybe this is a value presentation, so you focus on the value. If it's a sausage presentation, take the high level. I don't need to hear quips about how this nugget went into that nugget, unless it's appropriate for that environment. So you're going to keep the information simple to the relevance of what the people need, what they want, what they expect. And then finally, from an audience comprehension perspective, You know, you want to use their language, you want to use what they're looking for, and you want to do so in the timing that you allotted. So, simplicity. You should know your topic so well that you can break it down to a key set of thoughts. Number two is relevant. You're matching that relevant key information to the audience and what the audience needs. And then finally, you know, as it relates to timing, know when to stop. Don't go too deep. Know when to present, when not to present. And I think I'm getting some people leaving, which I'm a little bit late on. So I do apologize for that. No problem, Ron. So really, I was just going to talk about impromptu speaking, and I was going to talk about stories. But on the story side, I love this slide. This is a slide of the Cinderella story. Every presentation is a story. Every conversation should be part of a story. What's the narrative? What's the conversation about? With the Cinderella story, you can see, you know, you had a really bad situation, things got better, all of a sudden things crapped out, and then all of a sudden it happened. Most changes like that. A typical business conversation is, hey, I'm going to talk, this is who I am, I'm going to talk about what I'm trying to achieve, or the group's trying to achieve, here's the problems we face, all right, we're going to try these new things, and let's see if it solves the problem. What happens to a lot of people is not clear and direct. So they don't follow the story narrative, so they jump all over the place. Know the right time to say the right things based on the story you're trying to tell. And this is a great example of, you know, you're doing business presentations, or you're doing updates to groups, or you're trying to show, you know, what's going on. That's a great slide to do it. All right. Thank you all for staying. I think I could stay for a minute or so if you have any additional questions, but folks, this is recorded, so if you want to hear the answers, you know, you can go to the last few minutes of the recording itself. What about common tactic of some presenters, except joking at the beginning and start off at the introduction? It's not my thing because I don't like it, Joseph. I'm with you. The only thing I do is maybe tease myself, you know, oh, like I almost tripped over the cable, or, you know, I got a little goofy with the microphone. I don't like jokes. You just don't know what's going to offend somebody. And that's not our job. Our job is not for people to think we're great. Our job is to present the information we're presenting so that they get value from it. So I'm not a fan. Self-deprecation is the safest option. Bravo, Jared. That's exactly right. The safest option. Hey, Cape Town, beautiful country, beautiful country. How do you avoid presentations from veering off topic? You use that. That's not relevant. You use the relevant word a lot. I'm sorry, that's not relevant. Let's put that back. Let's backlog that. That's not relevant for what we're trying to get to. Let's backlog that. I don't want to get into that right now because I want to focus on what we're trying to achieve over here. But it's okay to use that word relevant. People applaud you. They're there. You know, remember, when you're in any type of presentation, you're taking somebody's time away from them. So they want relevance. They want to get out quick. Anyways, I loved it. This has been great. So much. Wait, what strategies can presenter employ to tailor the different audience demographics? So presenters from a different audience demographics is, first off, you want to be able to dress appropriately tied to the audience. You're showing that audience respect. So that's number one. Number two is you want to know enough about the audience's words and language. They have different language on certain things. They call things differently than what you would call them. Number three is, what level are they? Are they going to be very high level? Are they very low level? So you know what type of information are they looking for. You know, I don't change my presentations based on gender. I don't change my presentations based on race. I might change my presentations based on age. So, you know, I might, you know, use different language for a younger group. I might use different examples for a younger group versus an older group. SDLC professionals tend to be older, so I can use some older references. So I would say, first and foremost, you want to know and dress like your audience. You want to connect with them at their level. You want to use the language that they use. So know what language and terminology. You want to keep it relevant for their level. Again, save money, make money, stay out of jail. All right, what level are they at with that? And keeping that message relevant. And then from an age standpoint, you can really talk in terms of, different language for younger generation versus older generation. And then country-wise, you definitely want to stay, if you're doing anything out of the US, you want to stay away from baseball, football references, sporting references, any type of popular culture references. You can't do that when you're dealing with international, because it just breaks the frame of reference. So I hope, Christina, that helps a little bit. Oh yeah, Martina, I mean, I wish people spent more time on soft skills. Yes, vary your type of evidence. I love that one. All right, folks, you have a great rest of your day. It's been phenomenal. I appreciate it. Bye.